www.silverlungs.com today and learn more about the breakthrough technology of the Silver Lungs generator. That's www.silverlungs.com. Hi folks, this is Alex Jones asking you for a minute of your time to tell you about soap. Not detergents, but good old-fashioned pure soap made by the Cal Ben Soap Company, a family-owned and operated American company. My family, staff, friends, and radio listeners are constantly telling me how much they love these products for bath, hair, laundry, and dishes. There is nothing like these factory-direct, big money-saving, triple-concentrated soaps anywhere. Get a free detailed catalog by calling 800-340-7091 or see them online at 5starsoap.com or Infowars.com. Let's talk to the owner of 5 Star Soap, Marty Schachter, and see what he has to say.
As founder and owner for over 63 years, people keep asking me, how's business? I'm happy to say our business is going down the drain. Call us at 1-800-340-7091 or visit our website, 5starsoap.com, for buying our 1 to 2 month soap sampler. Thank you.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Interspersed throughout the last 52 minutes of broadcast today, I'm going to hit on other important market news, police state news, military news that I haven't gotten to yet with our guest. And we're also going to continue with taking some of your phone calls today. But I've gotten a lot of calls about this the last 4 or 5 months, and it certainly is just another good alternative and an idea out there of having state-chartered banks that aren't run by offshore, banks that create derivatives and then loan it basically to pension funds and governments and private investors. And to understand that, you've got to identify the private run-for-profit Federal Reserve. I mean, it's just that simple. Because the Bank of England is the same system, the EU central bank is the same system. This is the global private cartel that is taking control of the planet through the fact that they can just create all the money they want for themselves, all of the assets, all of the credit that they want. And this is the group setting up world government. This is the group erasing borders. This is the group that owns both political parties. This is the group that runs Goldman Sachs in every major regulatory position, with the foxes guarding the hen house, with Elena Kagan saying she wants your free speech, she wants your guns. She's a Goldman Sachs member. And she's written several books. EllenBrown.com is her website. She's a attorney in Los Angeles, of course, written Web of Debt. And she also has written some interesting articles. Cash-starved states need to play the banking game. North Dakota shows how. So we'll talk about that state bank. And here's a quote from Francis Bacon. He that will not apply new remedies must expect new evils, for time is the greatest innovator. And she joins us now. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Alex.
Tell us a little bit about yourself for those that just joined us. Break down your take on the banking cartel, where we are economically worldwide right now, what you see happening there, and then let's talk about a solution. It isn't a perfect solution. It won't fix everything, but instead of having a private Federal Reserve, I mean, even if the feds won't get control, even if the Congress won't take control of the issuance of currency and credit as they are commanded to in the Constitution, we can move at the state level as part of this states' rights movement to set up state banks. So let's go through it.
Exactly. That's where I think we have the most opportunity to get a foot in the door is at the state level, because Congress is totally bought and paid for by Wall Street. But the states are desperate. They have to balance their budgets, unlike the federal government, which is $13 trillion in debt and just keeps going. I mean, they haven't paid off the federal debt since 1838. But the states are required to balance their budgets, and that they're all in the red except one state. There's only one solvent state at the moment, and that's North Dakota. Actually, Montana is solvent at the moment, but by 2011, they project that they're going to be in the red, so they're going to have to slash services.
And the big central banks are doing the same thing they've done in hundreds of third world nations. They go in, They get the countries in debt so they can then be economically subservient to the banking cartel that makes the money out of nothing. And so you have all these unfunded mandates. The states are going bankrupt. What does the federal government do? Even more unfunded mandates. And then as things go completely bankrupt, the feds just absorb the states. So the states have got to rebel through their 9th and 10th Amendment powers now or never reverse this.
Right. All of our money actually is created by banks in the form of loans. That's my book, Web of Debt. That's the basic premise, the thing that most people don't realize. Most people think the government creates money and that it's the government's fault that we have all these troubles. But if the government did create money, why are they $13 trillion in debt? In fact, it all comes from banks. And
yeah, Kennedy issued some of our own money and got his head blown off. The last president to do it, of course, was Lincoln. For those that don't know, that's a good place to start. Explain to them how fractional reserve banking works. And now with derivatives, it's not even fractional. They just make up whatever they want.
Right. Fractional reserve lending goes back to the 17th century when the goldsmiths would take people's gold for safekeeping, and nobody really wanted to carry around this heavy, dangerous gold. So the goldsmiths gave them little paper receipts that later evolved into banknotes. And they soon discovered that they could lend 10 times as many banknotes as they actually had gold, because people would only come for their gold 10% of the time. So that was the origin of our 10% fractional reserve system. We still have the 10%, even though there's no longer any gold in the system. It's still roughly true that people come for their money, come to the bank about 10% of the time, and 90% of the time they leave their money in the bank. So banks are able to leverage their deposits by about a factor of 10. In other words, they can lend many times more money than they actually have, and that's how credit is created. Well, in fact, today banks don't even look at their reserves. They don't pay any attention to what deposits they have when they make a loan. If a good borrower, say a good client, a corporate client, comes to the bank and wants a loan, the bank just writes it into their account. And then it worries about the reserves later. So let's say you came in and you wanted a $500,000 loan to buy a house, and you would sign a mortgage, and the bank counts that as a negotiable instrument. That's an asset to themselves because you have promised to pay that sum over time. So they write that on one side of their books as an asset, and on the other side they write it as a liability to themselves, because you are now going to be able to write checks on that $500,000 that they're going to write into your account. And when you do, the bank will have to pay out on that. So that's where the money comes from, that liability where you're allowed to write checks. That's the origin of all the money that circulates in the economy, except for coins, which now compose only 1/10,000th of the total money supply, the M3 money supply. So,
and as the public begins to learn that gold and silver is real money versus crud paper that's being devalued globally across the board, not just our currency, you're going to see, as people rush into gold, its price go up according to all the laws of economics.
Well, true. And I myself am a heavy believer in gold and silver. But right now, our entire money system is a series of legal agreements. There's nothing behind it. And it's actually not that bad of a system, except for the fact that it's privately owned. We have private bankers pretending to have money. That's what Jefferson said. Thomas Jefferson said when he figured this out, like 20 years after the Continental Congress, and he figured out that the first U.S. bank was just pretending to have money. So he called them bold and bankrupt adventurers, just pretending to have money. That we had been tricked by them into giving them the power to issue our currency. So that banks still have the power to issue our currency and lend it to us. But if it were a publicly owned bank, so that the interest went back to the public, then would be a mathematically sustainable system.
And that's what the Constitution states it should be. But if the feds won't do it, we're trying to audit the Fed and having more success, we can still go to the state level. Here's a quote out of a local paper in North Dakota. It says, North Dakota is a sparsely populated state of less than 700,000, known for cold weather, isolated farmers, and the hit movie Fargo. Yet, for some reason, it defies the real estate cliche of location, location, location. Since 2000, the state's GMP, gross product, has grown 56%. Personal income has grown 43%, and wages have grown 34%. This year, the state has a budget surplus of $1.2 billion. And you believe from your research, a lot of that has to do with it having a state bank. Break that down and explain the difference between a state bank and, say, J.P. Morgan.
Well, this would be a state-owned bank.